Alright, gonna go ahead and get started. Pull it up here as well. Hello and welcome to the very first video titled Mediastreams. It's far from my first um stream, but it's yeah, I decided to start calling the show Mediastreams. So I was planning on playing Arkham City, which I just got on PC. It was running fine. It was running fine just playing it. And it was even streaming fine when it was like in the menu and I was looking at all the spec stuff and uh like looking at the trophies and listening to the music. But um when I started to actually try streaming the actual game, when I fired it up and actually started playing it, I started having all kinds of technical issues, and I just was not willing to deal with it. So, in the last 15 minutes, I spent the last 15 minutes while I was eating pizza and drinking soda, um, coming up with something to do because I did not want technical issues to interfere with the stream or anything. And so, I came up with this idea, kind of an impromptu one man podcast sort of thing. I'll probably rebrand this Ruby and Beyond podcast, Batman Arkham series after the stream is done. So what you guys are looking at is you got little chibi me drawn by Kitty Kirishima, and also the poster or box art or whatever of the game in question, and in the bottom corner is gameplay from Arkham City. It's actually from the Batman Arkham Video YouTube page, which is a YouTube page completely dedicated to the Arkham series, looking at them, figuring out all the Easter eggs and tips and tricks and all the stuff. They've been going really strong for several years because these games are really dense with Batman lore. And so, in this kind of impromptu, completely scriptless review of the series in question, I think the only way to really start it is by talking a little bit about Batman the Animated Series, because a lot of the creators of the Arkham games were carryovers from the Batman Animated Series TV show, including Paul Dini and Bruce Timm, a lot of the voice cast, Kevin Conroy, Mark Hamill, all of those guys, and uh, yeah, so I'm not going to talk a whole lot about Batman the Animated Series just because I plan on doing a Ruby and Beyond podcast with that, with Dude What the Heck and Robert and a couple of the other guys, maybe. Uh, Also, as I get started, feel free to ask questions in the chat. It looks like there's 6 people watching now. Um, yeah, I was kind of hoping more, but with the way this is kind of panning out and having to resort to this instead of what I had originally envisioned. Kind of upsetting. Kind of really upsetting. I wish my PC was better. I wish my whatever technical issues my PC is going through right now, I wish they would just get resolved. I plan on upgrading the RAM and the GPU pretty soon, like in the next week or two. Uh, I think my computer knew I was planning on doing that and got offended. Uh, because it's been acting like literally as soon as I was looking for I was looking at RAM to upgrade to and looking at GPUs to upgrade to, like right after I did that, that was when my PC started acting up. Like not a single issue with it before that. So just kind of odd timing. So then the first game in the series was Batman Arkham Asylum. I first found out about this game in 2008. Um, there was a commercial for it on the DVD for The Dark Knight, and it looked pretty cool. It looked like it was kind of a blend of ooh, kind of the comic book accurate Batman the Animated Series blended with the more like realistic Nolanized, um, gritty, dark, edgy Batman versions. Uh, and it came out in 2009, which was a decent year for games if I remember. That was the same year that like Uncharted 2 came out. It was highly critically acclaimed. Uh, I first played it was actually at a Walmart, I believe. They had the demo or a demo for it with just the challenge maps. And I believe that was also the first thing I ever played on a PS3 because I didn't get a PS3 until like 2010. Um, and I didn't actually play Arkham Asylum all the way through until long after it had come out. Uh, to the point where all the best parts had actually been spoiled for me long before I ever played it. Uh, the first Arkham game I actually played all the way through was Arkham City. And it was because there's a time where it was on sale on the PlayStation Store for like $20 or something, and that was when I picked it up. I picked that up and the Catwoman DLC. Uh, and I've been in love with the series ever since. So, Batman Arkham Asylum is kind of like an 8-hour episode of Batman the Animated Series. It's structured very much the same way. It's got a lot of the same voice actors. Um, the writing is on par with some of the better stuff from Batman the Animated Series, and that's saying a lot. Arkham Asylum might have the strongest overall story. I kind of I kind of regret saying that just because the ending in Arkham Asylum was so it kind of failed to really deliver a satisfying conclusion. Um, and then Arkham City took that same kind of approach and just made it open world, made it more expansive, improved on it in every single way, with the exception of maybe the plotting being a little too loose. But I'll get to that when I get a little deeper into Arkham City. Arkham Origins was very underrated, and I will get to why when I actually start talking about Arkham Origins. Um, and then Arkham Knight, I think Arkham Knight is also gets a bad rap for easy reasons, but you gotta kind of unfair to compare it too much with previous games. Okay, I'm gonna read some of these comments and then I'm gonna get a little deeper into Arkham Asylum. DeAndre Kid said the best Batman game is in the Arkham series. Oh yeah, Arkham City. Yeah, I agree. Joanne says hello. Roberto Maldonado looks like he has a Super Saiyan Rose Goku Black. That's a say that 5 times fast. This is his avatar. Says sup man, Arkham Knight is the best one in my opinion. There's some stuff it does really, really, really solidly. Then DeAndre Kid said, would have liked to see more of Tim Drake in the story. Uh, yeah, I kind of would too. Um, Here's the thing though, like Arkham Asylum set up this kind of one night stand type story where it's just one really long agonizing night in Batman's life where he's isolated, he's alone, he's facing his darkest fears. They take elements of some of the best storylines in all of Batman, like the Arkham Asylum stuff, the A Serious House on Serious Earth, which was also kind of referenced in the Batman animated series episode Dreams in Darkness, which, if you've ever seen the animated series episode Dreams in Darkness, that was like a rough draft for the Arkham Asylum script, or at least the Scarecrow segments of the Arkham Asylum script, which are the best parts. Um, so in Arkham Asylum, Batman delivers Joker at the beginning of the game, at the beginning of the night, but it turns out he planned on being captured, and from there, actually had someone help him take over the asylum with Batman trapped inside. So then Batman has to go through this gauntlet of challenges and all these rooms and exploratory stuff in Arkham Asylum in order to try to reach and stop the Joker from doing whatever it is he was trying to do. And throughout that, you got like a lot of these detective moments where he's finding clues, talking to people, uncovering the secrets of Arkham Asylum. And there's a lot of like lore stuff within Arkham Asylum. A lot of like one of my favorite parts is the cells that you can see like a lot of different like holding cells for the various patients, and they're all themed after whoever was in there. There's a lot of like resource reusal or asset reusal stuff with those cells, but when you reach a cell that belonged to like a serious Batman villain, you know right away. Like Calendar Man has his cell just plastered with all these calendars. Two-Face has his like painted black on one half. Riddler's got like a bunch of question marks all over his. I love the environmental details with that. Uh, I think Arkham City actually does. I think that's one thing that Arkham City actually improves on. Um, and so Batman goes through. Arkham Asylum is completely explorable. And the game actually falls into kind of three categories. There's the combat pieces, which uses the free flow combat that I bet Rocksteady wishes they would have actually like copyrighted and patented, because every action game since has like ripped off that same combat system. Uh, it's in Assassin's Creed. You know what? It was not that kind of combat system was not in the first couple Assassin's Creed games. That didn't start until like Assassin's Creed 3, I believe, which I want to say came out in like 2013. I want to say that came or maybe 2012. Maybe it was 2012. It was after Arkham Asylum. I know that much. Um, the Shadows of Mordor games, which are actually made by WB, same like publisher as the Arkham games, uses like an identical combat engine or yeah combat mechanics. It's one of those combat mechanics that I really like. It's easy to learn. It's really simple 3-button stuff, but there's a lot of stuff you could do with those 3 buttons, and that just gets explored upon or expanded upon with each iteration. Um, which is why I think Arkham Asylum is actually my least favorite of the Arkham games, at least when it comes to gameplay. It's my second favorite story of the four, with Arkham City taking the cake just by a smidge. Uh, and Arkham Asylum I think it has the weakest gameplay. Uh, and a lot of that like it's the first game in the series, so it makes sense. It's actually to Rocksteady's credit that they keep expanding on it for better or worse. The Bat Tank. Uh, Sorry, just getting a piece of pizza. Yeah. Then the stealth segments are my favorite to figure out the first time. They get a smidge easy. Um, the second time through, and it's one of those things that like On higher difficulties, the Predator segments don't actually get any harder. And I think that's a really small nitpick, honestly, especially since the Predator mechanics themselves are actually like that satisfying to do. Like I love it when games have the kind of predatory approach to stealth. That's actually something I really like about the Deus Ex games. Is the Deus Ex games, or at least Human Revolution and Mankind Divided. I can't really speak for the first one and Invisible War, because I haven't played those games. I haven't played Invisible War at all. I've played like a little bit of the original Deus Ex. But anyway, the like sneaking around, picking them off one by one, watching them grow more and more frantic. Like I love that stuff. Um, and then you got the exploratory segments, which are very Metroidvania. It's very, hey, you could go to all these places and do all this. Unlock a gadget. Okay, now you got all these other pathways opened up. Get this gadget. Okay, now you got all these pathways opened up. And the plot kind of gets stretched a little thin with some of them. Like there's part where Batman calls in the freaking Batwing to drop in the line launcher. Like I could name a dozen different situations that could have where Batman could have used Batwing intervention before then. Not only that, but you start the game with just the Batarangs, and you get the explosive gel pretty early on, and it's just in the trunk of the Batmobile. Uh, and then you get the cryptographic sequencer at a very arbitrary point. I believe the remote control Batarang was an upgrade. Like you had to buy that, similar to the Sonic Shock Batarang in well, Arkham Asylum too, but all the other games since then as well. Um, and then yeah, so you can like use the Bat Claw. I don't remember when you get the Bat Claw. I think you get the Bat Claw when you're in the Bat Cave. That's a lot of bats. And then yeah, the Bat Claw like lets you rip down vents that are on this on the walls that are high up. The explosive gel allows you to take down like barriers and walls and stuff. Cryptographic sequencer allows you to open doors that have security locks on them. Uh, I know there was like the Ultra Bat Claw that allows you to pull down walls. That's a gadget I wish returned in subsequent Arkham games, but it never did. Uh, man, yeah. So I'm gonna get a little deeper into the story and my memory of Arkham Asylum. Just had a little glitch there. My memory of Arkham Asylum is a little rusty. It's been a long time since I've played that game. But we are experiencing technical difficulties. Uh, looks like you guys are. Looks like we're back. On my end, it still says that this stream status is bad. This is what I was talking about. This is what I was talking about earlier. Okay, stream health is good again. Sorry about that. Yeah, we dropped a lot of frames there. Lot of minutes there dropped. Okay, anyway, the plot of Arkham Asylum. It doesn't really evolve beyond the whole Batman chases Joker thing, but because you're alone and it's got almost this dual protagonist setup where you and Batman are both kind of working together as player and player avatar to do all this stuff. And because of that, you get a lot of downtime where you get to explore Batman's kind of psyche. And that really comes full circle during the few Scarecrow segments that are in the game. I believe there's 3 of them. But you get a bit of that with some of the other bosses too. Um, yeah, and then I completely lost my train of thought. Yeah, so one complaint I have with Arkham Asylum is why I don't think it's a stronger story than Arkham City is pretty much everything having to do with the Titan formula. Like that, and then gameplay wise the bosses are leave a lot to be desired. In fact, I'm gonna say something. I might get flack for this. I might actually convince you all. Arkham Origins has the best bosses in the entire series. I'm gonna read some comments. Roberto said the Batmobile was awesome, but it was too heavily used. Completely agree. Yandre said, I was so mad when they gave Batman shot gloves because I wanted to give my comic book characters shot gloves and doing my best to stay away from Batman, and no, I never saw that. Um, well, shot gloves are very common in comic books. Like, just off the top of my head, I know Shocker from Spider-Man has shot gloves. There's also the Electrocutioner, who is a character in Arkham Origins. Um, and then there's been some other characters I know. Roberta said, I don't know, it's just me, but I don't like how his suit stays permanently damaged when you go through the story. Wish you could fix it or something. Well, actually, on Arkham City there is, I think, or maybe it's Arkham Origins. I know 1 or 2 of the Arkham games. You can get like you know how you have like the costume DLC packs in all the games. Except again, I don't think Arkham Asylum has bonus costumes. Well, anyway, you can get like the full fixed up version of the suit that doesn't deteriorate over time. I really like the idea of I wish it was something you could turn like off or on, like in the settings menu, like at the very beginning of the game, where you can like choose whether damage is shown on your costume or not. Because it, on one hand, by the end of the game, you look like hot garbage in all of them. Like it's just a bad night for Batman in all the games. Um, but and on the other hand, like I really like how that shows just how much Batman is going through. Yeah, like compared to the other 3 games, Arkham Asylum is very tame in its story. Like again, like a lot of it centers around the Titan formula, which is just kind of a bland subplot, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's made from Bane, and then Bane gets taken out like really early on in the game. And then all the Titan fights in the game are identical to the Bane fight, and they're kind of like substitute for the bosses. It gets a little more interesting when Poison Ivy gets a hold of it and starts using her super plans to rip apart the asylum. That part's good. Uh, but then it builds up this kind of like almost psychological horror aspect with Scarecrow and even a little bit with the Killer Croc segment. And then at the end of the game, after all that, like eight plus hours, depending on how bad you are at the game, uh, FYI, I have 100% beaten Arkham Asylum in a single night before. So, I'm not to toot my own horn, but I am really, really good at these games. It's one of the reasons why I love them. It's something I can just turn on and know that I'm not going to get frustrated. Unlike some games, Cuphead, uh, which is another game I got recently. And then, yeah, so, but you get to the end of Arkham Asylum, and instead of having this either cutscene or maybe like a all-out brawl with a bunch of men, or some other like death trap that you have to avoid, or maybe a predator segment, which is what they tried doing with Two-Face and Harley Quinn in the post game of Arkham City. Like Two-Face with the Catwoman bit, and then Harley Quinn with Harley Quinn's Revenge DLC. Instead, it's just, oh, Joker's just gonna inject himself with Titan, turn into a big dump monster, be really, really easy to avoid, then send just a bunch of the same goons you've been fighting all game after you. You beat them up, use the Ultra Bat Claw to slam Joker down, and then just punch him. Like that was just a really unsatisfying end, and it really highlighted perhaps Arkham Asylum's biggest flaws. That it's either too easy or too repetitive. Uh, Again, like the story is masterfully told in every single bit of dialogue, all the patient interviews, all the flavor text with the different bios, giving you insights into Batman's world. Like all of that stuff is excellent, awesome stuff. But when it comes to the actual gameplay, Arkham Asylum is just it's either too easy or too repetitive, or probably both. Like there's only really three different enemy types. You got thugs, you got crazy people, and then you got the Titans. And yeah, the thugs come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and they'll have like shields or stun batons or knives. But other than that, like the intensive treatment inmates, just you beat them with just a single counter. And then the Titans, you just wait for them to charge, hit them with a batarang, dive out of the way, and it almost plays itself at that point. Uh, yeah. So our Arkham Asylum, it was a good foundation. It was a good first effort for Rocksteady's Batman series, and they knew that they were going to be doing more stuff with this license. Uh, Obviously they didn't know what, and it's obvious that they didn't know what because you can get stuff like I'm pretty sure Red Hood has a bio thing in Arkham Asylum, as does Hush, Hugo Strange, Azrael, like all these other characters that Batman is supposedly meeting for the first time later on. Man Bat is another one. Okay, so that's really all I have to say about Arkham Asylum. I give it like a 8 out of 10 as a game overall. Just it doesn't hold up as well as the other Arkham games, and you can definitely see how they improved on in every single way in the next game. And up overextending that picture. All right, so Arkham City. Uh, Arkham Asylum had a secret room in it. You guys probably have heard of this. It was a room that it didn't show up on the map. It doesn't show up with your detective vision. Which, oh yeah, I haven't talked about the detective vision at all. The it's fine. It really adds to the kind of power fantasy of being Batman and being like this almost omniscient HAL 9000 living HAL 9000. Uh, I don't like it when other games do it because a lot of the other games kind of forget the power fantasy of Batman that the Arkham games were doing. They're just like, oh, let's just let uh dude from Dishonored be able to see through walls with an upgrade. Yeah, it makes the game, it's not good for stealth games actually. Like, okay, it's decent for stealth games, but there should be a limit to it. Batman's not really a stealth game. It has stealth elements, which is why the detective mode is fine because it's a power fantasy, and that power fantasy is being the freaking Batman, being vengeance, being the knight, being the Cape Crusader, being Gotham's protector, the Shadow Vigilante, the Invisible Predator, all the world's greatest detective, all those other titles that Batman has, which is actually a ridiculous amount now that I said it out loud. Uh, there's a secret room in Arkham Asylum. You had to use like 3 explosive gels. It was like behind Quincy Sharp's office, and it had rooms for. It was basically like, hey, here's what we're planning for the sequel. And so 2 years later, the sequel came out, Arkham City, and it was one of the best games I have ever played. They improved in every single way. The graphics, marginal upgrade, maybe, just more expansive. The fact that it wasn't all just the asylum and various parts of the asylum, that they were able to do a lot more with the setting. The whole like theme that Gotham is sick and Arkham City is just a just a symptom of a greater disease, and Batman is like the one of the few white blood cells trying to fight this infection, and it predates Batman. It goes way deeper than anything he could ever hope to accomplish, and it kind of makes you wonder if Gotham is even worth saving. Like, an entire couple neighborhoods got sectioned off into a giant super prison where all the gangs can just run wild and uh act out No Man's Land, which No Man's Land is also one of the best Batman stories, by the way. And there's only so much Batman can do to help. Uh, and another thing I like about the plot is kind of the ticking time bomb nature. Now the whole like 10 hours till Protocol 10 is kind of video gamey, especially when you could maybe play for like 15, 20 hours uh and you can play for that long in between hours where Hugo Strange talks, because Hugo Strange saying like 10 hours till Protocol 10, 9 hours till Protocol 10, etc., etc., are like story driven. They're triggered by story events. Uh, though I have timed it out, it is absolutely possible to almost 100% complete this game in 12 hours. Like, so from like 5 in the evening to 5 in the morning. I think there's actually a challenge, like a one night challenge, that I would very much like to do and stream. But I would have to stream it to Twitch because I don't think YouTube can handle a video of that magnitude being streamed directly to it. Um, but I would kind of like to do that with all the games. Because again, like I 100% completed Arkham Asylum in like 8 or 9 hours. I've done almost the same with Arkham City, just a lot of the random Riddler trophies. Like, I've gotten enough Riddler trophies in that amount of time to actually catch the Riddler. Like, you don't need all the trophies in order to finish the Riddler side quest. It's just all for a completionist bonus. Um, that was another thing too. Like, so all the villains, and there are a lot of villains in Arkham City. Probably more than it seems like there's more villains in Arkham City than there are in any of the other Arkham games or any two Arkham games combined. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that every single major villain has their own motivation and their own like villain plot that they're doing. Joker's whole plot is with the Cure, and that's part of the main plot. And it's kind of and Harley Quinn is trying to like save Joker. Um, then you got like a Two Face who just wants to like take over Arkham City. Penguin wants to take over Arkham City, but he also like doesn't want to leave the museum, and he's got all the weapons and stuff. And you got that three-way gang war between Joker, Two-Face, and Penguin that goes throughout the entire game. And the like street level politics changes after every mission because Batman's interferes. Like you take out Two-Face, and all of a sudden Two-Face's territory is under siege. Then you take out Penguin, and all of a sudden Penguin's getting like railroaded by Two-Face and Joker. And then yeah, it keeps going on like that throughout the entire game. They got like Hugo Strange's plot, which is Protocol 10. You got Ra's al Ghul, which is pretty much the same exact plot he always tries doing nowadays. It's just destroy Gotham. Like that's I feel like Warner Brothers and DC are kind of stuck on that aspect of Ra's al Ghul. Victor Zsasz has like the payphone killer side quest. Deadshot is executing political prisoners. Then you got then we got Hush, who is the identity thief, and he's trying to like steal Bruce Wayne's face. Uh, you got Mr. Freeze, who just wants to save Nora, which again is kind of like redundant of every other incarnate of everything Mr. Freeze post 1992 or whenever that episode of Batman the Animated Series came out. I've been talking for like half an hour straight, so I'm getting a drink real quick. But Arkham City is also just dense. Get another video set up. There. I thought I had the next video like auto set, but it didn't. It was trying to do switch to the Telltale Batman game. So I'm gonna read some comments. DeAndre said the Arkham Knight ruined the Arkham Knight game. Like I said, figured him out way too easily. Some people thought it was Damian. How? I'll get to the Arkham Knight. I have a lot of thoughts on him. DeAndre said I liked Azrael. I liked him in Arkham City. I liked him when he was actually kind of looked like he was going somewhere. Looked like they were going somewhere with that whole subplot. And again, like they build up Azrael in Arkham City with the mysterious Watcher subplot. Like you can see him as you first enter Arkham City. He's got the four messages. Then you meet him at the church, and that same church has the like stained glass window with someone who looks suspiciously like Azrael. And it's total sequel. It's total sequel bait. But then in Arkham Knight, Azrael doesn't really do anything. Roberto said nobody knows about Batman Begins, the video game. Uh, actually, I do, and I disagree. It was I don't I think it was okay. I think it was all right. I think it was kind of ridiculous, especially with the Tumblr sections where you would like create all these explosions and then it would do like the counter where like count down to 0 casualties no matter what you did. Uh, Luann says, does Batman say I'm Batman to anyone in the Arkham games? If not, I'm boycotting. I think in Arkham Origins, they do the I am the Knight, or I am vengeance, I am the Knight, I am Batman! I believe they do that. But even by Arkham Asylum, he's been Batman for at least a decade. And so like everyone knows who he is. He doesn't have to introduce himself to anyone. Which is why, like in Arkham Origins, I'm pretty sure he has that classic line. Uh, Coop Seeker meme says Shocker doesn't have shock gloves. He has shockwave gloves. Oh, because that's so different. Uh, Roberto asked, "Have you played Fighter Z? It's pretty good. I have watched Team 4 Star play it. Uh, I'm probably not gonna get it. It, I'm definitely not paying full price for it. I'm just not that into fighters. Um, fighting games. I'm not gonna pay more than like $30 for it. And even then, only when they finish up the Team 4 Star voice mod, so I can get real like voice actors in there. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, I'm totally all for the potential Team 4 Star voice mod that they're allegedly working on. DeAndre said another thing I didn't like about Arkham Knight, Harley Quinn beats Nightwing. I don't recall her even encountering Nightwing. Uh, the Tim Drake Robin I know is part of that subplot, but yeah, kind of. I don't recall him actually getting beaten. I think he was still fighting her goons when Batman showed up. Because Harley Quinn like came with with a small army over to the film studio place. Coop said that's actually pretty in keeping with Nightwing's character. Most of the people he gets beaten by could be by Batman. Uh, yes. I really like Nightwing. I like Tim Drake's character. I think, or not. Well, I like Tim Drake too, but I like Dick Grayson. Uh, Also, I think what DeAndre was talking about is Penguin. Penguin gets the drop on Nightwing and puts a gun to his head. But then it turned out that Nightwing was actually just goading him and ended up like knocking him out. And then Batman's like, "I'm proud of you, son." Oh wait, what? Uh, Coop said, "Media, what do you say to the accusations that Batman is just a ripoff of the Shadow?" And no, I'm not a Razor Fist sock account. Uh, I would be completely fine if you were because I kind of agree with them. Although, here's the thing. Uh, I think Street Smith could have gotten a little bit of recompense on Batman because yeah, it is obvious that the first Batman appearance is a ripoff of the Shadow, and they are very similar characters, and there is a lot of inspiration. But I like what DC has done since then with that, with the whole going back to Batman the Animated Series, the episode "Beware of Grey Ghost." That is top three, top at least top five best episodes of Batman the Animated Series. It's one of those that makes everyone's top 10. Um, and then Yeah, there's definitely a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Homage there. But I think since then, Batman has definitely carved out his own niche, far away from just the Shadow ripoff he started off as. Mainly with the villains. Batman has, I love the Shadow, and I'm not, even though I love the Shadow, I'm not overly familiar with the pulps. I just finished the Golden Vulture yesterday, uh, which makes two Shadow pulps that I've read out of the 300 plus Shadow pulps that exist. Um, so I can't say this for sure, but to my knowledge, the Shadow doesn't have very many memorable villains that like stick around and stick in your head. Like I love Strumpf from Crime Insured, but he was just kind of a one-off guy, and a lot of the villains in the radio drama weren't much to really write home about either. And I've listened to a lot of the radio dramas, so I think that that's one like area where Batman does actually far surpass the Shadows. That his rogues gallery is just way more interesting. Uh, Luann said, "Guess I'll be right back. Things to do." Cube Seeker memes going full Akbar. I don't recall saying it's a I don't recall saying it's a trap. I guess I'm king of the live chat now. My reign shall be brutal. None shall cast aspersions on the anime series Mr. Freeze. He was very well written in that show. Yes. And then he said, Spider-Man 2 was the best licensed superhero game ever play it. Uh, yes, and or no and yes. I have played it. I don't think it's anywhere near the best licensed superhero game. I don't even think it's the best Spider-Man game. I think it was the first really good Spider-Man game. I think it's kind of the Arkham Asylum of Batman of Spider-Man games. I think a lot of the games that have come since then, like Ultimate Spider-Man, which was on which I played on GameCube, I believe. Maybe it was PS2. I know it was out on PS2 as well. I'm pretty sure I'm more familiar with the GameCube version, but that was really good. Um, there's been a couple good Spider-Man games since then, actually. I'm kind of excited for new one that's coming out. Then Roberto said they should do a Flash-like Arkham game. I have no idea what a Flash game would look like. Like you would almost have to do an action platformer, wouldn't you? Like something in the vein of Sonic or Jack and Daxter, because we don't want a Flash game to suck. Yeah, I have no idea what a Flash game would look like. It would have to be an action platformer is the thing, and it would have to be. Man, I don't know how do you, because platformers are so like floaty island heavy and stuff. Like I have no idea. Wow, I'm gonna have to come back to that one. A Flash game. What would a Flash game look like? I would want a 2D platformer or an endless runner like Temple Run or Subway Surfer. I can totally see DC coming out with a mobile game of Flash where it's just a endless runner. Anyway, so Arkham City, my favorite part about it is just how dense it is. Like you can't go more than 10 feet without running into a bunch of Easter eggs and references to Batman lore and all this other stuff. Like it's so dense, and it is dense in a more meaningful way, I think. Like here's the thing about Easter eggs and stuff. I can appreciate what's there in the game. doesn't mean I'm gonna go out of my way and actually look for all the stuff. Like I've said that about Bioshock, System Shock, Deus Ex, like the new Prey game. Like I can respect that they have all these like flavor text and emails and all this other stuff, but I don't really care because I don't care about all these corporations emailing each other in Deus Ex. But I care about Batman lore, and so all this depth and all these Easter eggs and stuff in the Batman games is a lot more meaningful, at least to me. Even though it is a little ridiculous that so many landmarks in the Batman lore happen to be in the same like neighborhood. Like, who would have thought that Ace Chemical Plants was right across from the Monarch Theater, or that the courtroom where Harvey Dent got acid splashed in his face was like right across the street from that, or his campaign office being right down the street from that, or Catwoman's apartment being right next door to the courthouse. Like it's a little ridiculous in that regard. But I still appreciate all the effort that Rocksteady put into the game. Uh, Now gameplay wise, they didn't add a whole lot. They I think they added a little too much as far as the Predator stuff goes. They made Predator missions and Predator maps and stuff way too easy. Because you get the disruptor, the phrase blast, the smoke bomb. There's a bunch of instant knockouts right there. Like you could just use those three gadgets and get through an entire Predator map without getting touched. Which is why I like the challenge modes uh being like perk based. Like and this is true for Arkham Asylum as well, I believe. Uh I think. I know it's definitely true for Arkham City, Arkham Origins, and Arkham Knight. Arkham Asylum, I'm a little like again more rusty on because it's been so long since I've played it. Where gotta do very specific things to get the medals. Gotta do very specific things to get the stars or whatever you want to call them. Uh, and then the combat, uh, the way the combat really improved throughout the game is actually with enemy variety. Like their Arkham City added in the ninjas with the League of Assassins. They have to use the blade dodge to beat. Then you also got knives. Thugs with knives kind of work differently than they did in Arkham Asylum, and it's a little more involved. You got the armored thugs that you can't use you can't use silent takedowns or regular attacks to beat. And you got no shields were in Arkham Asylum. I'm sure. I know stun batons were. Stun batons work a little differently than they did in Arkham Asylum. The Titans work way differently. It's no longer like ole. It's more gotta use the ultra stun combo and then beat them down. And that's how you beat them. It's much more involved, much more engaging, much more fun. Um, you also got the lieutenants, the Abramovich twins, Hammer and Sickle, whatever you want to call them. They just beat repeatedly and dodge their strikes. Uh, and there's a lot more fun with the gadgets. Like if an enemy is holding a pipe, like these guys are, um, you can use the remote electric charge. I think that's what this guy's trying to do. Yeah, you can use the remote electric charge to like force them to hit their friends. Oh, and you can also counter projectiles. That was something you couldn't do in Arkham Asylum. Kind of weird that you can do it in Arkham Origins, but I'll get to that later. Um, yeah, you got the yeah. I think that's all like gameplay wise. Now the story is where Arkham City really shines. And I could recite the entire story and almost all the dialogue verbatim. Like Hugo Strange finds out who Batman is. Yeah, he finds out who Batman is, locks Bruce Wayne up in Arkham City. Arkham City is like, okay, gotta find out what Protocol 10 is and stop it before it's too late. And also have to do this while worrying that at any minute Hugo Strange could tell the world the Batman's identity. Um, it's kind of like this race against time, but because video game, you still take however long you want. With the side quests and stuff. Uh, so you track down Catwoman. She points you. For some, I don't know what. Actually, I know why Batman thinks that Catwoman would know because but you gotta like read the flavor text to know. But if you're just a casual player playing through the story, you would have no idea why Batman thinks Catwoman would know anything about Hugo Strange, but she does, and she points you in the direction of Joker, who actually is kind of working with Hugo Strange on Protocol 10, but is also kind of an unwitting pawn of Hugo Strange, but also kind of a wild card that Hugo Strange can't predict, which is the best way to use Joker, really. Like, that was one of my big complaints about Arkham Origins is how they use Joker. Like, I think it would have been way better had Joker been, like, someone that Black Mask actually hired in, similar to the Dark Knight. Like, that's how the Dark Knight used Joker with all the crime lords. That's how Under the Red Hood used Joker with Black Mask there. Uh, but I really love it when people try using Joker as an unwitting pawn, but because he's such a wild card, he ends up screwing up their entire plans, and then the night just falls into a battle between Batman and Joker. I love the stories like that, and Arkham City does that, which is why Joker outlasts Hugo Strange in the story. Spoiler alert. Oh yeah, spoiler alert for all the Arkham games, by the way. Just to get the big ones out of the way, Arkham Knight is actually Jason Todd, and Black Mask in Arkham Origins was not actually Black Mask; it was Joker in disguise. There you go. Those are the major spoilers in the game. Oh, and Hugo Strange is actually working for Ra's al Ghul. There's the big twist in Arkham City, which oh my god, I've been playing through the Arkham City again. I was playing through a lot of it for tonight's stream, but I couldn't actually get it to stream. But they give you so many hints at what's going on with the Joker and Hugo Strange is working for that. Upon second playthrough, I felt like upon repeated playthroughs, I felt like an idiot for not predicting it right away. And that's how the best mystery stories are, in my opinion. Uh, let's see. Here's some comments. DeAndre Kid said, I was talking about Harley Quinn DLC on how she caused problems in Bloodhaven, and also I like neutral Harley and Justice Harley because she's her own person, not the Joker crazy girlfriend. I'm not sure how I feel about Harley Quinn as like her own character. She was never intended to be like her own villain. She was always she was literally made to be Joker's henchman. Uh, Coop said Flash would end up being like an open world 3D Sonic game. No, that's the worst case scenario. Then he asked, ever played Hulk Ultimate Destruction because I was wrong before about Spider-Man 2? Uh, Hulk Ultimate Destruction is really fun if I remember correctly. Uh, but we're talking like it's been 11, 12 years since I played that game. Uh, Roberto said, "Do you watch any of the Batman animated movies?" Yes, all of them. Eventually, even it takes me a year or two. Like I'm behind on a lot of them. Like I haven't seen. I think the last one I watched was the Batman versus Robin. Uh, and I did watch the one with Adam West. Batman versus Two Face, which took place in the '60s continuity and had William Shatner as Two Face. I watched that I watched that shortly after William Shatner's death. I remember, like, I basically watched it first chance I got after finding out that it is the last time anyone will ever be able to hear Adam West as Batman or any character at all, because I'm pretty sure it was the last thing he worked on before he died last year. I think the '60s Batman show is very underrated overall. It's really good. It's really good television, guys. And before anyone cries like foul over comic book accuracy, that's exactly what the comics were like back then, guys. Like I've read some '60s comics. Adam West looks downright tame compared to how freaking obnoxiously crazy DC comics were back in the '60s. Like Super Friends is probably actually a better representation of what Batman was like in the '60s comics. Coop said, "Who is the best actor to play Batman, Joker, in your opinion? Are we talking just the live action actors, or are we talking like overall? Because overall, I would say Mark Hamill is the best Joker. I don't know who I would pick for best Batman. There's been so many different versions of Batman and so many great versions of Batman. But none of them I think are perfect. Like even Kevin Conroy, kind of, I have some issues with as Bruce Wayne. Um, Although in the animated series, there's some bits where it's like, oh my god, he's doing such a good job. Like I rewatched a couple of the episodes just earlier today, and what was the episode I watched? What was it? Was it I think it was the very first episode on Leather Wings where I where like Batman does his Bruce Wayne voice in the Batman costume, and it's really offsetting, and it's excellent. Um, so I would probably pick Kevin Conroy for Batman and Mark Hamill for Joker. Now if we're talking live action, Batman and Joker, Heath Ledger, far and away the best live action Joker. He'd be my second pick for Joker overall. Uh, and as far as Batman goes, I think I would pick Michael Keaton. I like Christian Bale. I think Christian Bale's a little underrated actually. I think yeah, his Batman voice is a little ridiculous, but he managed to convey so much of what Batman was and who he was with that dialogue and with those actions and with that. A lot of it was the writing though. He was just able to convey all the emotions he needed to. Like I really liked his Bruce Wayne. I liked his yeah. I think he was the best Bruce Wayne. But I like Michael Keaton just a little bit more. I think it was because Michael Keaton didn't talk a lot. Like Christian Bale's Batman voice. Like the worst thing about his Batman is his Batman voice, and even then it's not so bad except for the fact that he just keeps talking. Like how many speeches does he need to make in that freaking Batman voice? Uh, yeah, I think that's where it gets on a lot of people's nerves. Whereas Michael Keaton, I'm pretty sure he only had like a couple lines as Batman. Uh, and the rest were like Bruce Wayne, and a lot of the dialogue with Bruce Wayne was just flavor text, like not even anything really important. It was just Bruce Wayne. It was just Bruce Wayne-isms. Uh, Roberto asked, "What's your opinion on Jared Leto Joker?" I think he is awful. I think he is the worst live-action Joker. I think he had no business being in that movie. I think that movie has very little business even existing. I say that as someone who actually kind of enjoyed it, unironically. Uh, but yeah, he was the worst part of that entire movie. Uh, he, he was the reason why so much of it didn't work. Like all the Joker subplot stuff that just interferes with the more grounded camaraderie story and Suicide Squad is one of the biggest issues that entire movie has. And it's on all aspects, not just Jared Leto's performance, but it's Jared Leto's performance, it's the directing, it's the editing. They Jared Leto complains that like, oh, they cut out half my freaking scenes. Is like, I wish they would have cut out 3/4 of your scenes if that's the case. DeAndre Kid said, say Alfred and Christian Bale's Batman voice. Give me a second. Alfred, where are the other trucks going, Alfred? I can only do it in short bursts. Cube said, best Batman story in the comics. Okay, so I'm very familiar with the comics, but I don't have like an encyclopedic knowledge of them. So there probably is better stories than this, but the one that always stood out to me was No Man's Land, which is actually from the 90s, like mid 90s. Uh, it was a major inspiration for Dark Knight Rises. It was a major inspiration for Arkham City. It's it 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 more than any other Batman story I've read, it treats Gotham like its own character. Like it treats the city of Gotham as its own character worthy of like thematic and psychological exploration. Without actually personifying the city like Earth Chan. Oh my god. No, no, no. Now I can't stop picturing this waifuing waifuing Gotham City. Gotham City waifu. I'm pretty sure it would just be Harley Quinn, but still. Now I got that thought in my head. I'm not ever gonna be able to get it out. Thanks a lot, guys. Man, I got so sidetracked with different stuff. Uh, I think I think everything I need to say about Arkham City has already been said. Like, just the fact that it has 400 Riddler stuff, and I love doing every single one of them, and the fact that I have 100% completed Arkham City numerous times, and I'm about to do it again, and I am completely fine with it. Like that, it speaks a lot to just how fun the gameplay is, how engaging the story is, how just everything in Arkham City clicks into place and is exactly what it needs to be. Um, which is the best Batman game ever. Now, switching gears to Arkham Origins. Um, Arkham Origins came out in 2013. So the thing about this game is that it was not made by Rocksteady. It was made by WB Montreal, who were an unproven studio. They did the Arkham City Armored Edition for the Wii U. I'm pretty sure that was the only thing they had done up to this point, and it was because the creative team behind Arkham City needed the extra 2 years to make Arkham Knight because they were doing it on next gen platforms. they're developing for PS4 for the PS4 and Xbox One for the first time. Uh, they ran into some like production issues because apparently like Paul Dini didn't want to return. Which happens a lot. Like Paul Dini is probably the best Batman writer living today, but he gets burned out a lot. I think by the time he was done with Arkham City, he was just kind of burned out on Batman for a while. Like he consulted on Arkham Origins and Arkham Knight, but he didn't do a whole lot as far as writing goes for those games, and I can't say I blame him. I get burned out on Beyond all the time. Uh, and then so Arkham Origins, it used a lot of the assets of Arkham City, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing because it takes place in the same city, it's the same neighborhood as Arkham City, and then the adjacent island with New Gotham or whatever. And the setup is actually very video gamey, and it's very conducive to a video game environment, even more so than Arkham City, honestly. The idea that like, oh, this really powerful criminal, Black Mask, hires 8 assassins to kill Batman. Like that's literally like the setup of a Mega Man game, and it happens to also be a Batman game. Like, so you would think that the game that the game story would kind of facilitate like the battles between these 8 assassins, like maybe one assassin per mission, as you're trying to track down Black Mask and take him down and stop him before he gets someone else hurt or kills you. Um, it takes place. I think it's supposed to take place like 10 years for Arkham Asylum, something like that. Uh, and it shows in some aspects like the area that would later become Arkham City looks a lot better than it did in Arkham City. Like it's obviously not completely run down yet. And the criminals are different. Like they're not all freaking crazy monsters like Two Face and Penguin. There's actual gangsters like the Falcones and the Maronis are still hanging around. Penguin is like the new guy in town. Him and Black Mask are like the new kids on the block fighting for control over Gotham. Um, and the bosses are a lot more like almost militaristic. Like you got Deadshot, Deathstroke, Lady Shiva, who is just representing the League of Assassins. Firefly is probably the craziest of the assassins. Got Killer Croc, and Killer Croc looks a lot more like he did in the animated series, as opposed to the giant hulking monster he was in all the other games. And even Bane, like Bane looks a lot like he did in the Dark Knight Rises, and I think the Dark Knight Rises is a big reason why Bane was portrayed the way he was. Uh, because Bane doesn't make a whole lot of sense in Arkham Origins. I'll get to that later. Even though he is my favorite boss fight in the game. Uh, yeah. Arkham Origins, because Kevin Conroy was Mark Hamill was allegedly retired. Turned out that turned out to be a publicity stunt, so that would be so freaking awesome when he came back in Arkham Knight. Another spoiler alert there. Uh, they got I can't remember. I think it was like Bryce Dallas Craig or something playing Batman in Arkham Origins, and then Troy Baker as Joker. And Troy Baker, here's the thing about Troy Baker. Overall, he kinda sucks. He's not a good voice actor. So many of his roles are just this flat, monotone voice, like Talion in what was it? Shadows of Mordor, or Pain in Naruto, or all these other flat monotone characters that he's played. But he really hammed it up as Joker, and he was arguably like one of the best parts of that game. His performance was. Um, so where Arkham Origins kind of falls apart is with the Joker though. The whole bait and switch. It's not Black Mask. It was you thought it was Black Mask, but it was I, the Joker. And I just don't understand why Joker would go to these kinds of lengths just to fight Batman when they haven't even met at this point. In the title is Arkham Origins, yet the only origin in this movie is the origin of like Batman and Joker's dynamic. But even then, it was like when they first meet, they're instantly already in that same kind of dynamic they were in an Arkham Asylum. Uh, I like I like that it challenged Batman psychologically, even though like he's gonna win, he's gonna all these guys are gonna live because they're in Arkham Asylum in Arkham City. Like the whole Alfred may is he not gonna die totally falls flat because he's in the other games. Um, although I did have a theory that like maybe Alfred was gonna die, and then at the end of the game, Batman was gonna like make a robot version of Alfred, and that was the Alfred in the other games. Like that would be kind of dark and morbid, and I would actually love if they went that route. Uh, like in his depression, Batman makes Robo Alfred. Uh, as far as the 8 assassins go, oh, another problem I had with Arkham Origins was how scripted a lot of it was. Like, so I think a perfect game. This is why none of the Arkham games are perfect. They wrestle control away from the players too much for my taste. Like I would much prefer something like BioShock or System Shock or even Deus Ex where like even when there's cutscenes, a lot of the places where you think you could make decisions, yes, there are lots of decisions to be made. And a lot of control, a lot of player agency. Um in an Arkham Asylum and Arkham City that there's only a little bit of that. There's only a little bit of okay, Batman's like on the phone right now and he's walking slowly. You gotta walk slowly until this conversation ends. Or hey, Batman sees something. Let's zoom in with the camera so that we can make sure you see it as well. And that is very child friendly. I think it's a little hands holdy though. Arkham Origins is a little more ridiculous with that because you got these segments in Blackgate Prison that bookend the game and they are completely turbo linear, no branching pathways, and a lot of it's the same location, like reused locations, like like the same locations from the beginning of the game are at the end of the game. And it just makes it just it's supposed to be an open world game, but it takes like an hour to actually get to the open world. Like imagine if Skyrim's on rail sequence at the beginning sucks. Same thing with every other game that uses the like on rail scripted sequence at the beginning. Uh, like it works in Arkham Asylum and Arkham City because those are also like the opening credits and stuff. So it's like, yeah, this is an interactive cutscene, but this is where the first cutscene would be. Like instead, we're letting you walk around and we're giving you a good layout of like scene geography, at least in Arkham Asylum, or especially in Arkham Asylum. Like Arkham Asylum, the credit sequence was like very, hey, here's a lot of the places you're going to be backtracking through over and over again throughout the game. We're giving you a really good look at it in this controlled setting long before we have you actually like be beating up goons here on an hourly basis. But then even after that first level, that first Blackgate level, and that first mission, you get in the Batwing to go into the open world, and then it freaking crashes your plane or forces you out of the plane and into the first radio tower to undo that in this very like hands holdy stealth segment, this equally hands holdy detective segment that sends you into this like little encounter with Enigma, who, spoiler alert, is Riddler. Batman's first encounter with the Riddler, and they act as if, and that's part of the main plot, but it's actually like a subplot, so it's like forcing you into subplots, into side missions in the middle of the main game. And it does this with a lot of the different side plots. Like another one that comes to mind is after you do the sewer level underneath GCPD and get into like all their criminal data files, uh, you come back up and then there's a bunch of guys with like Mad Hatter masks that are like they do like this uh stangogram or whatever they're called, telegrams, where they sing to you and invite you into the hat shop, which kudos on WB Montreal making the hat shop Easter egg in Arkham City, an actual level where you the actual level where you fight Mad Hatter. But it's like Arkham City didn't do that. Like you'd hear like radio messages as you're going through the game where Tiger Guards are like, "Hey, there's a guy on the rooftop. There's a flare on the rooftop of the Cranko toy factory." Uh, or hey, we just found this dead body with this wrapped up face. You might want to go check it out. But it never interferes with the game. It never interferes with the main story. Um, with the one small, very very minor exception of the part in Arkham City where you save Vicky Vale. Um, and then it kind of pans out and shows Mad Hatter putting his hat on, and that's supposed to be like when he first does a hypnotic trick on Batman to get him to believe that he has a cure, which leads into the very brief yet very excellent Mad Hatter side mission in Arkham City. Uh, but the thing about in Arkham Origins is that other than the several $1 million bounty or however much it was, there's no reason for any of these guys to be fighting Batman. There's no reason for Mad Hatter to be going out of his way to fight Batman. It builds it up like Bane has this deeper reason for signing up for Batman and why he's not interested in the bounty. He just wants to beat Batman, but never actually explores that. Same thing with Joker. Like Joker has no reason to think that him and Batman are like this connected force until like the end of the game. By then, but even before then, by their first encounter, it's like the Joker's already on like that whole spiel. Which is why I think Arkham Origins has the most disappointing plot. Not the worst. I think Arkham Knight is weaker plot wise too. Um, but there's just a lot of these weird incongruities. I think a lot of it was that WB Montreal, instead of making a prequel to the Arkham series, they were making a prequel to Arkham City and Arkham City alone. Like they did not care about like all the stuff that was established in Arkham Asylum. I think that's where a lot of the incongruities come from, to be perfectly honest. Uh, and then yeah, you chase down these assassins. Like the first assassin, like you take down the first assassin before you even learn that there are assassins, and it's Killer Croc. He's the first boss, and he's probably the worst boss just because it's just he's basically just an armored thug that you have to button mash around. Just use your beatdown combo. You can button mash your way through them. And then you got the one hit kill on Electrocutioner on Penguin Ship. Then at the end of that level, you got Deathstroke, and it's like a rhythm game. It really like tests your ability to hit triangle when there's attacks, but only when there's attacks. Like you can't mash your way through that battle, even though it looks like you can. You actually can't. I actually on my first playthrough, I thought you could just mash your way through it, but you can't. I died a lot, an embarrassing amount of times to Deathstroke on my first playthrough of Arkham Origins because I kept on like just mashing counter, and you can't just mash counter because if you hit it too soon or too late, he'll hit you and just tear you apart. And then after that, that's when the Joker stuff starts going on. It gets a little more chaotic. Another thing is that two of the eight assassins are relegated to side quests. One of them is a very very cool like detective thing that leads you into like a Predator sequence with Deadshot. I think the Deadshot mission in Arkham Origins was a lot better than Arkham City. Arkham City is just like, hey, wait until he's not looking, sneak up under him, and then take him down, and that's it. Whereas Arkham Origins, you had to like find different ways to beat him. Uh, you couldn't just silent takedown him. You had to like use the knockout smash and environmental takedowns, and kept on calling guys in. Uh, they got Lady Shiva, who again like they it's supposed to be the beginning of all these dynamics. Yeah, all these dynamics are already set, and like by Arkham Origins, Ra's al Ghul has apparently already said that Batman is a worthy successor, and is just sending Shiva out as a formality to train him to test him. And she's really easy. She's probably the easiest of the assassins to beat because she starts out like just another martial arts enemy, which is a really cool enemy type that Arkham Origins introduced. And I wish would have been better implemented. Like it's a really awesome concept, but I think they were still a little too easy. They didn't counter enough times. And then they got the Royal Hotel, which is my favorite level in Arkham Origins, and one of my favorite levels in any Batman game. Uh, is it's just this gauntlet where you're climbing up the Royal Hotel and you fight Bane at the end, and it's a really cool boss fight because he overwhelms you and stuff. Um, and then they rehash that same boss fight for the end of the game. Because I'm pretty sure the Royal Hotel is like halfway through the game, maybe 2/3 of the way. But that's where Joker gets arrested and goes to Blackgate, and then you're kind of just left meandering from there till the until the second Blackgate level. And part of it is the fact that you get Joker, but Bane escapes. So then you're trying to find Bane, and turns out Bane knows who you are somehow. Uh, But before you can get Alfred, Firefly starts up his villain plot, and is about to blow down the bridge. I really like the Firefly boss fight. I think it was also like a really good use of Batman sketch. Oh, I completely forgot about Copperhead. Oh wow, Copperhead. She's basically a rehash of the Ra's al Ghul fight from Arkham City, which again doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Um, yeah, and then yeah, you get to and there's this really cool setup with Joker, Commissioner Gordon, or he's not Commissioner yet, Captain Gordon, just Gordon, um, Bane, and Batman. And it goes about the way you would expect it to because, you're Batman. And then Bane just, like, pumps himself up with this TN1 venom that turns him into the Hulk and wipes his memory, apparently? Like, what? I always like the idea that Bane in Arkham Asylum and Arkham City knew who Batman was, but just didn't care because he suspected that like if he told anyone, they would try getting Batman, and that would like ruin his fun, ruin his goal or whatever. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for this TN1 Venom stuff, which is a precursor to the Titan formula, I guess, to just wipe Bane's memory, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for Bane to like inject it into himself and turn into just a big dumb monster with a broken freaking boss fight. And yes, the last Bane fight where you're like sneaking around, you gotta like get behind him, so like it's pretty broken in all honesty. Uh, Roberto said, also Ben Affleck as Batman. What's your opinion? Um, he was okay in Batman v Superman. He tried his best. That's all I can say. That's the thing about like a lot of the performance stuff is that it's really hard to tell. Well, unless you like really do your homework, it's hard to tell like what's the actor's fault, what's the writing's fault, and what's the directing's fault. The problems with Ben Affleck's Batman, I think, are all in the writing because Ben Affleck tries his best. Zack Snyder um doesn't like screw around. He doesn't like make it worse with his directing. But the script is just so awful in that movie. Just one of the worst scripts in superhero movie history. And I think Ben Affleck was phoning it in a bit with Justice League. Honestly, like I really don't. I think he checked out after he watched Batman v Superman. Uh, if Arkham Asylum is like an 8 out of 10, and Arkham City is like a 10 out of 10, or maybe a 9 out of 10, if I'm setting aside a lot of my biasms for Arkham City. I would say Arkham Origins is also an 8 out of 10. I would say it's just as fun as Arkham Asylum. It messes up in a lot of different places. Uh, the biggest place it messes up though is actually with the overworld. It's just kind of barren and empty. Like Arkham City was so dense where you couldn't go 5 feet without hitting a bunch of Easter eggs. Arkham Origins has the same amount of Easter eggs spread out over twice the area. And a lot of it's the same Easter eggs because half the map is identical to Arkham City. And there's not as many there's none of the riddles that you have to scan in like in Arkham Asylum and like in the other Arkham games. I think that's a big reason why I love Arkham City, why I love the Arkham games is because of the Riddler the actual riddles. No, it's just data packs. Data packs that Riddler talks up as like, this is gonna change everything. Release the memo. Uh, but it turned out to just be like, oh, Commissioner Loeb is corrupt. Who would have guessed? But like all of Riddler's stuff in Arkham Origins that he said like, this is gonna tear down society when people find this out. It ended up being a big nothing burger that everyone already kind of assumed. Uh, yeah, so it just kind of renders his subplot useless, um, in comparison to his plots in the other Arkham games. Like Arkham City, he had hostages that you had to save. He wanted to prove that he was better than you. Arkham Asylum was kind of ingenious in that like he left all these clues because he knew that this was going to go down eventually and had preemptively prepared for it to try to like distract you and make you look like a moron while you were trying to solve all the Arkham Asylum situation. But then when Batman succeeds, is like he takes it personally, and so he just ups his game for Arkham City. Arkham Origins is like, why not just have all the data packs stored in his room? Like, why is he like that's the biggest that's a big problem with the story in Arkham Origins is that like goes back to that whole idea that none of the villains actually have a reason to have a vendetta against Batman yet because they haven't met him at that point. Whereas Arkham City, everyone has a vendetta against Batman, everyone has a reason to fight him, and everyone has their own reason, their own way of dealing with him. Uh, that's what made Arkham City so unique and so like involved. Uh, yeah. Also, there's a lot of performance stuff like Arkham Origins kind of came under fire, which growing pains for WB Montreal, guys. Like the PC port was apparently a disaster. And yes, I'm still talking about Arkham Origins. Arkham Knight had similar PC issues, but was for some reason that was the one that caused the outrage. I think maybe because no, because I'm pretty sure the same people did the PC port to Arkham Knight as Arkham Origins. So it's like I I I I get the complaints. I just don't get why they weren't complaining more about Arkham Origins if that was the case. Um, but yeah, I think that's a good transition as any. You talk about Arkham Knights, Arkham Knight Rider, Arkham Bat Tank. Um, Gameplay wise, a lot of it's the same as Arkham City. There not much has changed. There's more enemy types, like the medic is a really awesome touch. Um, they do with like the armored lieutenant guys. Um, the map is really detailed, but for some reason, like I don't know what it is. Maybe it's brevity is the soul of wit, or however that quote goes, because Arkham City has the smallest map of the open world Arkham games. It's bigger than Arkham Asylum, but Arkham Asylum isn't considered open world like Arkham City was. Yet, it feel that each subsequent game has felt even emptier. Grant, I think Arkham Knight feels less empty than Arkham Origins. But only just. Like, only barely. And it's like 3 times the size of Arkham Origins. And like 5 times the size of Arkham City. It's just kind of ridiculous that it still has the same amount of Riddler stuff and the same amount of Easter eggs, just spread out over an even greater area. And the map is wider, and it's wider a lot to incorporate the Batmobile. And the Batmobile is fun and all, but that's the big gameplay addition is the Batmobile. Batmobile is fun. Batmobile is great for the first 20 minutes that you're using it. Uh, I think they should have nixed all the tank stuff with it. I think they should have just kept it as another tool, another way, another means of transportation. They should have keep all the chasing stuff because it's like the question is why use the Batmobile if you can just glide? Well, the answer is well, let's have these guys like running around in cars and these other like tanks and stuff that Batman has to use the Batmobile to chase down in order to keep up with them and immobilize them. Like keep that stuff. Um, Completely cut out the tank combat because that was just clunky and ridiculous. Like Batman's supposed to not kill anyone, uh, so someone explained to me the concept of non-lethal explosions. Uh, I also love every single time that the Batmobile is used in a puzzle. Like I love it getting incorporated into like the environmental puzzles and the Riddler stuff. Like I love that stuff about the Batmobile is what, and that's widely why I don't have big problems with the Batmobile. I just think it wore out its welcome. Like that's the biggest complaint about Arkham. That's really every single problem with the Arkham Knight isn't actually a problem. It's just something that wasn't great, that wore out its welcome. The Arkham Knight as a character, the whole mystery of the Arkham Knight, Scarecrow, the Joker hallucinations, which are probably the best part, but still like goes to show that like it was just wearing out its welcome. There's a bunch of side missions. Three of them all involve the right three no four or five. You got the rooftop stuff, the roadblock stuff, the chasing stuff, the tank stuff. Yeah, there's four side missions involving the Arkham Knights gang that are just really repetitive. Like there's combat stuff, predator stuff, tank stuff, chase stuff. It's just those same things over and over again with the militia, and there's like dozens of individual like locations on those side mission branches. But Two-Face, who has probably the best side mission in my opinion, he only gets three. Penguin only three, four, I think. Man-Bat, dude, you could beat the entire Man-Bat stuff in like an hour. The serial killer, which is kind of like a stand-in for the identity thief. Um, there's only like four bodies that you have to find and investigate. Um, you got the Riddler stuff. Like I'm pretty sure there's more militia stuff than Riddler stuff, and that's a major problem because the militia just aren't interesting. Um, and then what are some of the oh you got the Deacon Blackwater the crazy church dude that's on the island that has like Jack Ryder hostage or whatever, and you just go over there and save him, and the side mission is done. Got all the stuff that was hinted at in Arkham City that just doesn't show up. Um, like yeah, the League of Assassins stuff is relegated to DLC. Um, uh, Closure with Mr. Freeze is relegated to that same DLC. Same thing with Mad Hatter and Killer Croc, I believe. Um, I haven't talked about the DLC stuff. Yeah, I'll give a little segment to all the DLC stuff here after I'm done talking about Arkham Knight's core gameplay. Um, it just slipped my mind with Arkham City and Arkham Origins. Um, you got all these possibilities, all these villains that they could draw from. They pick some bargain basement guys to fill out the side quest stuff for Arkham Knight. Like I liked the Firefly stuff, but Firefly is not an interesting villain. Um, Bane's not in the game at all, despite being like basically the main villain of Arkham Origins and a major player in Arkham Asylum. There's nothing with the Titan formula. There's nothing with the League of Assassins. There's nothing with Protocol 11 or Tiger Guards or Hugo Strange or anything left over from that. Uh, the whole Azrael thing just completely gets sidelined. It turns out like you run into Azrael in Arkham Knight, and it's just he wants to replace Batman, and so you send him through these like really easy training things where he can't get hit, and then you like scan his brain or whatever, which is just absolutely ridiculous. Um, and then that's it. Like he makes the choice and then just walks away. Uh, Either he chooses to believe Batman and walks away, or he chooses to still fight Batman, gets taken down and thrown into a cell. Um, the Hush thing, like they built up this really good rapport with Hush in Arkham City. Then in Arkham Knight, it's just literally a 5 minute long side mission where you go to Wayne Manor, hit triangle once, and he's done. Um, just so not satisfying at all. Uh, and then you got the Arkham Knight himself, Jason Todd, the worst part of the game. Gonna get another drink. Uh, so here's why the Arkham Knight doesn't work. They don't connect him with anything that happened in the prior games. Like, this is supposed to be the conclusion. I think Arkham City was a much better conclusion than Arkham Knight. Like, if the Arkham games would have just ended there, and then maybe do some like prequels or spin-offs or whatever. Like ending with the Joker's death in Arkham City, and then this ambiguous ending of like, is Batman gonna be all right? Is Batman gonna like? Does Batman even feel like he even needs to be there anymore? Which none of that stuff. They did touch on that stuff in Arkham Knight, and it's some of the best stuff in Arkham Knight. Like I can't say they missed any opportunities there like they did with Arkham Origins. Um, which is why I'd say Arkham City. I'll maybe get to a verdict later. Um, cause I have so many torn feelings about the Arkham Knight. I think the main problem was how much they hyped him up. Like, if they didn't hype him up so much, if they didn't be like, if they weren't like, hey, we created this awesome new villain, I would think it would have went over a lot better. I think if he was literally anyone except Jason Todd, there still would have been people who complained, but it would have not been anywhere near the majority. The fact that he was Jason Todd, literally the safest pick, literally like the first person anyone would expect this character to be based on the Batman mythos, I think the game would have done a lot better. It just kind of doesn't make any sense. Like it doesn't make sense in the comics either. I've addressed this in a podcast before. But the whole Superboy Prime Punch somehow resurrecting Jason Todd, like that didn't make any sense. What made sense was in the Under the Red Hood movie where they used the Lazarus Pit. But they don't tie that in. It's just this is a they don't tie that in. Like I think if the I think if the Arkham Knight character was somehow connected to Hugo Strange and the Tiger in the League of Assassins. Like maybe if he was, oh, I don't know, Damian Wayne. Um, I think that would have been a lot better. Or if he was just some dude who got um, like brainwashed into being like the ultimate Batman killer and was brainwashed by like again like if they would have tied him in with Hugo Strange because that's what Hugo Strange was doing with the Tiger Guards, that he was like brainwashing them to become the perfect militia to take on Batman. It's Pat Lotica that did him. Batman literally took a sick day and still beat him. Uh, but yeah, I think if they would have tied him with the League of Assassins or something, it would have went over a lot better. I'm gonna read some comments. Roberto said Riddler loved making Batmobile puzzles. Yes, and I loved the fact that he loved it. Arkham Knight would have been a great choice where you have civilians that you can save, but yet again they remove them. They did, and then they have the firefighters, which the firefighters are kind of a stand-in for like the political prisoners in Arkham City, I guess. Except instead of just one random thug that you can take out in one hit, it's a bunch of thugs that you actually have to plan around. Like I like the firefighter subplot, or I don't like the story of it, but I like the gameplay of it. I like finding them randomly huddled up in buildings and stuff, and then having to figure out a way to take on the thugs in that environment, um, and save the firefighter. Uh, but yeah, I think if there were more civilians and do like a random occurrence, like do the Spider-Man 2 thing where every like half hour or something in game time, there's a civilian that desperately needs your help and you gotta like go there and save them. Uh, and Cube Seeker meme said, in theory, the concussive force from a sufficiently small explosion could be non-lethal. However, it would be hard to ensure the tangent would be that the target wouldn't be standing too close and get killed anyway. Yeah, I'm talking about like in the middle of tank fights and stuff. You're shooting um these remote control tanks, which again, like if Arkham Knight knows so much about Batman, why did he have robo tanks? Why didn't he have people actually piloting them? Like that would have forced Batman to not use explosions that took them out and would have made his job a lot harder. Uh, and but you could do this, like you could blow up all the stuff with people still standing there trying to get out of the way. Arkham Knight should have been Batgirl. I don't know how that would work because Oracle is in the game in a major part. The Arkham Knight's face turn wasn't that good to me either. No, no, it wasn't. That's another problem with him is that he just does this really random face turn. You get to his pathetic excuse for a boss fight where you just sneak under him, hit R1 3 times, and then he just goes away, and you deal with Scarecrow one last time. Then he's there, like helping you for a second for some reason, and it never explains why. So yeah, I would probably give Arkham Knight overall an 8 out of 10, just because I still had so much fun playing it. There's just a lot of problems with the story, the Bat Tank, the open world setting. There's a lot of problems that I had with it. Probably a lot more than any of the other games, but I'd be lying if I said it was. I'd be lying if I said I had less fun with that than I did with Arkham Asylum or Arkham Origins. Um, it's just nowhere near as good as Arkham City. Like Arkham City is just is so superior to the other Arkham games in my opinion. And that's really all I have to say about Arkham Knight. Uh, within this format. Um, so I'm gonna talk a bit about DLC. Uh, the Arkham Asylum had the Joker missions, which were pretty fun. I think they were still PS. I think they were always PS3 exclusive. I don't think any other version ever got the Joker missions. I might be wrong on that though. I might be wrong. Uh, Arkham City had a couple DLC packs. They had some extra challenges which were fun. You had uh the costume packs which were excellent. Playing as just the ability to play as the animated series Batman or the freaking wicked looking Batman Beyond costume that they made for it, that they made for Arkham City, makes it worth it. The other ones I don't care that much about. I think it was like there was Dark Knight Returns Batman, which I think Dark Knight Returns is a wee bit overrated. Um, the you had the Nightwing pack, which made Nightwing available for the challenge modes, and it also came with a couple of his own like maps. Same thing with Robin, but then Robin also had had some story context with Harley Quinn's Revenge, which was uh, not very. I mean, it wasn't bad. It it was a little on the short side, but I'm pretty sure it was only like $10. So no, it was like $14 for all the Robin stuff, for all the Robin and Nightwing stuff. Um, which I'm pretty sure it came with Harley Quinn's Revenge. I might be wrong on that. I haven't checked. Um, I like the idea that Batman was kind of going through a depression or something now that his arch nemesis is dead. Uh, and Harley Quinn wants revenge, but they didn't end up really doing much with it. They kind of did a little bit with Batman and Robin's dynamic, but that's all they ever. That's the only thematic content that they did with Harley Quinn's revenge that they actually like followed through on. That was a major theme in Arkham Knight, which is why I'm fine with Arkham Knight being a failed Robin. I just wish it was someone who is also tied with the League of Assassins like Damian Wayne. That way it would have also connected thematically with Arkham Asylum and Arkham City and Arkham Origins, which all three of those games featured the League of Assassins as major players, and Lady Shiva using the League of Assassins sending Lady Shiva as one of the 8 assassins. Um, then Arkham Asylum and Arkham City were all just Hugo Strange and Quincy Sharp were all just puppets of Ra's al Ghul in the League of Assassins, and so I wish they would have done something with that with Arkham Knight. Uh, and then you got in Arkham Origins, there was the Cold Heart DLC, which was basically just here's Heart of Ice but playable. That was really it. Um, the biggest complaint I have with the Arkham Origins DLC is that none of it featured Robin. I don't think. I think the Dick Grayson Robin was playable in a DLC pack. No, no, he was not. No, he was only in the multiplayer, I believe. Uh, I wish he would have been in like a DLC pack, at least for the combat challenges. But I think it was kind of lazy for WB Montreal to have a DLC pack for Arkham Origins that was literally just Cold Heart. That was literally just Heart of Ice from Batman the Animated Series. Um, especially with like we're this DLC is gonna be about one of the most important relationships in Batman's life. Like, ooh, Robin, right? Like they even set it up in the actual game at the end of Arkham Origins with like the whole "No man is an island" speech that's given, and Batman like finally learning to trust people at the end, and finding out that he can't just do everything by himself at the end. Like that would have been a perfect segue to have some DLC where Batman meets Robin and takes him under his wing. That's what the Arkham Origins DLC should have been. And that would have also led in brilliantly into the themes of Arkham Knight, which was the key theme of Arkham Knight is Batman's relationship with his Robins. And Dick Grayson, who's kind of like a son, Tim Drake, who is kind of like uh, Tim Drake being much more of a sidekick that the Batman kind of like neglects. Dick Grayson being much more like has a much more father son dynamic with him, where they have each other's backs, and Batman actually like trusts him to be able to do things on his own, which is why he's like, Nightwing, I really need you back in Bloodhaven like right now. Like that's where you belong. And Nightwing's like, no, you need me here. Bloodhaven's fine, Dad. God, the dog is fine. I'm taking care of it. Don't have to worry anymore. Also with Oracle, who used to be Batgirl, like that whole dynamic, and the stuff with Jason Todd tying into that, like that was all good stuff. It just kind of came out of nowhere as far as Arkham, as far as that game goes, as far as this franchise goes, because I don't think Jason Todd had ever been established in the Arkham games, except maybe in Arkham Asylum as Easter egg. Which the Easter eggs in Arkham Asylum, as far as that goes, kind of aren't canon. As I said before, like supposed like Batman has all these files on these guys, even though he just meets them later on, in later games, like a Man Bats one, Hush, Hugo Strange, Red Hood. Um, it- yeah, so that's my rant about Arkham Origins DLC, a failed opportunity for DLC over. The other Arkham Origins, I know there was like there's Deathstroke, which he was a lot of fun on the combat challenges. I think for Predator challenges he left a lot to be desired. Um, Played a kind of like a combination of Nightwing and Robin in Arkham City. Uh oh, I keep forgetting to talk about Catwoman. I keep like skipping over Catwoman. The Catwoman DLC sucks. She sucks. She has barely any gadgets. She has barely any health. Her gimmicks aren't very conducive to the different like predator levels that are in the game. Um, it's a mess. Her first mission is just a combat room that just interferes with the otherwise excellent opening to Arkham City. Her second mission is just going over to Poison Ivy, and then she hangs out there for like 8 hours. And then the third one is just this really slow, boring Predator stuff. Then you got the BS stuff with Two Face at the end, where like after you beat the game, and you can't keep playing as Batman until you beat Two Face in this level, and it's just obnoxious. Anyway, writing about Catwoman over. Um, yeah, Arkham Origins also had like a Bruce Wayne like DLC pack that had like extra challenges where he was with like these martial artists. Like I guess it's supposed to be the League of Assassins, maybe not. Uh, it's the same enemy types as the League of Assassins and like the martial artists and the ninjas game. Uh, and it's just kind of I don't know. There's something off about the way Bruce Wayne plays in that game. And then you got after that Arkham Knight, which had a lot of DLC, a lot of costume DLC, a lot of excellent costumes, like a new Batman Beyond costume that looks sick. Adam West Batman, which is always a treat. You got different Batmobiles that you can use in races, in the raceways and stuff in the post game. Anything that requires a tank, it'll switch you out for one of the Bat Tank models, or whichever one of those you got picked. But yeah, you can drive around in pretty much any Batmobile ever. The '89 version, the Batman v Superman, the Tumbler from the Dark Knight, um, the '60s Batmobile. Uh, I think the only one missing is the one for Batman Forever, honestly. Uh, and then that yeah, this costume. That's the you can get Robin, Nightwing, and Harley Quinn as playable, and I think and Catwoman too. So you got Catwoman back. She's no better than she was in Arkham City. Robin plays exactly the way, or pretty close to the way he did in Arkham City. They changed up a couple of his moves and where and which gadgets were mapped to which button for which quickfire gadgets were mapped to which buttons. I think they did the same thing with Nightwing, and I think they changed up some of his like special combinations. And then you also got the Arkham Knight that you can play as, which I love playing as the Arkham Knight. It's probably the best part about his character is how he plays challenge modes. On top of that, they had a couple story DLCs. They had one where that was supposed to be like a prologue, where it's Harley Quinn breaking Poison Ivy out of GCPD lockup. That was a lot of fun. I don't like the way Harley Quinn plays, and she's awful, just the worst in Predator missions. But she's kind of fun in combat challenges. She's got the like rage mode, where all of her hits will be one hit kills for a bit. Um, yeah. Let's see what else was there. I think there's one in for Catwoman that was post game where it's like her versus Riddler. There was a Nightwing one. I think there's one for Nightwing and Robin as well. Robin, I'm pretty sure was Two-Face that he was facing, and Nightwing. I want to say it was Penguin that he was facing. It might have been Black Mask. No, no. With Red Hood, it was Black Mask that he was facing. That's right. Um, and then you got the holiday one, the winter one. The that was actually like in the overworld, and like you can switch from playing Arkham Knight to playing the DLC on the fly in the game world, which I really like. Except just kind of weird that it keeps going from rain to snow as you go back and forth. Um, but that kind of tied up a couple of the villains that hadn't been in Arkham Knight. There's a mission string with Mr. Freeze. Um, one with Killer Croc where you team up with Nightwing, I believe. Then you had one with Mad Hatter and one with the League of Assassins. Which I think the League of Assassins one was very necessary because again, like they were responsible for all the stuff that happened in Arkham Asylum or at least Arkham City. Uh, they're responsible for a lot of the stuff that went down in Arkham Asylum, but not like the actual plot of Arkham Asylum. That was all Joker. But yeah, they were responsible for all the stuff that happened in Arkham City. Uh, there's Easter eggs where like you can see Ra's al Ghul's dead body and uh right after you beat him in Arkham City at the end when he falls off Wonder Tower. Then if you go back there after like beating the game, his body's gone but his sword is still there. And then even in Arkham Knight, there's Riddler stuff where it's like the demon's head will rise again or whatever, and it's just really good closure. I think it could have been better closure had they taken a bit more risk and just actually had Ra's al Ghul straight up die. Be like, no, I'm not ever coming back. So and so is now the demon's head. Also, doesn't make sense that they never resurrect Talia. Like Talia gets shot in Arkham City and dies, and it's like they never use the Lazarus Pit on her. Like I find that a little incredulous. Some comments. 'Cause I don't. Um. So I'm gonna wrap up here. I've been going for about 2 hours, talking nonstop about these games. I love them. They're just one of my favorite game series ever. They're all various flavors of good, with some disappointing elements and present in all of them except maybe Arkham City. I can't think of anything I legitimately don't like about Arkham City. Um, but yeah, Arkham Asylum. What did I say? Like 8 out of 10 for that, and for they all get 8 out of 10 except Arkham City, which I give a 10 out of 10, or at least a 9 out of 10. Uh, yeah, if you haven't played them all, why? And you have, Thomas, if you sat through all this, let me know what you think about all the Arkham games. I would like to have more discussion on this subject because it's something I really like talking about. G-Man QS, isn't Clayface immortal since he fell in the Lazarus pit? I'm pretty sure Clayface was always kind of like quasi-immortal, just because he can just regenerate and reform. Like he's quote unquote died so many times in the comics and TV show, only to just reform later on, like when he dries out a little bit. Uh, yeah. So last call for questions. I'm gonna cut the stream. All right. So if you liked watching this rundown, if I get a lot of like views and stuff on this, I might do this again with some other franchises, like maybe a certain Zelda. Oh, I think I just spoiled it. No, I have absolutely no plans to do this sort of thing ever again. But if I do, if this gets enough views, I might, consider doing a live stream discussion like this again. And I will probably be more planned out and maybe even have guests. Because, this was off the cuff, no script. This was made just because I my computer just, for some reason, I don't know if it's my computer or it's my internet or both, just couldn't handle streaming and gameplay at the same time. It handles streams just fine. It handles gameplay just fine. But for some reason, I try doing both, and it just loses its freaking mind. Uh, so until next time, I'm Mediocrity 4, and thank you. Oh, and thank you all for watching. Have a good night.